a quiet archive record. Tonight, we're stepping into a slow unfolding. Settle in, let the outside world dissolve, and gently descend into tonight's world. Bushido is often translated as the way of the warrior, but it is not one single rulebook, and it was never the same in every time and place. Tonight, we will take a calm journey through what can be confirmed, what was written later, and what was imagined after the fact. We will walk from early clan warfare into the long peace of the Tokugawa era, where the samurai class had to explain itself in words, not just in steel. Along the way, we will meet real texts, real customs, and real pressures. Loyalty, shame, duty, and the quiet fear of failing your name. When the evidence is solid, we will say it plainly. And when the story turns into legend, we will slow down and let the legend speak softly without forcing it into certainty. Tonight, we uncover the Bushido Code. Now we begin with a clear definition. Bushido is a modern umbrella term for a cluster of ideals connected to the samurai class: loyalty, duty, self-control, courage, and reputation. Those ideals did exist in many periods, but they did not always look the same, and they were not written as one single official code. Much of what people call Bushido today is a later description of older practices, shaped strongly during the long peace of the Tokugawa era, and then reshaped again in the modern age. The word Bushido feels ancient when we say it now. It sounds like a single, fixed tradition, a clean list of virtues that every samurai memorized. But history rarely gives us clean lists. History gives us people. It gives us imperfect choices. It gives us families trying to survive, rulers trying to hold power, and individuals trying to decide what kind of person they will be when life presses down on them. So as we move through this story, we will hold two truths at the same time. The first truth is that there were warriors in Japan, and they did develop strong values about loyalty, discipline, courage, and self-control. They wrote about those values. They trained them into the body. They also punished and rewarded them. The second truth is that the neat, modern idea of Bushido as one national moral code was shaped much later. It was shaped by scholars, officials, teachers, and writers who had reasons to present the past in a certain light. If you have ever looked at an old statue and felt it staring back at you, you know the feeling. The statue feels fixed. It feels like it has always been there. But if you trace the stone back, you find a quarry. You find tools. You find people who chose a certain pose, a certain face, a certain angle of the chin. A tradition can be like that. It can feel like an unbroken chain when it is really many links, forged at different times by different hands. We will start with the ground beneath the word. We will start with the samurai themselves. The term samurai comes from a verb that means to serve. In its earliest sense, it points to people close to the powerful, people who guarded, protected, and carried out orders. Over time, as military power shifted and the country moved through long periods of conflict, a warrior class became central to politics and life. But even that warrior class changed. A mounted archer in one century is not the same as a sword-wearing official in another. The tools change. The battlefield changes. The laws change. The very meaning of honor can shift when the world around it shifts. Imagine early warfare, armies moving through rough terrain, local lords with their own banners, their own grudges, their own alliances. In this world, a warrior needs skill, yes, but also needs a network. You need a lord. You need people who will fight beside you. You need land, or the promise of land. You need a reason to endure fear. Loyalty begins here, not as a pure idea floating in air, but as a practical bond. You follow a leader because the leader feeds your family, gives you status, and protects you, at least in theory. In return, you fight. You risk your body. You risk your life. In the heat of a chaotic world, loyalty is a kind of glue. But loyalty is not always simple. People switch sides. People hedge bets. People choose the winner when they can. It is easy to imagine a pure warrior code. It is harder to live it when defeat means your children starve. There is a story often told about warriors announcing their names and lineages before a duel. There is some truth behind this kind of practice, but we should be careful. Battles were noisy. They were confusing. They were also political. A warrior might want to be recognized so that his deeds could be rewarded. If you are brave in public, you want witnesses. So honor too can be connected to reward. It is not always the spotless, selfless thing we wish it to be. That does not make it fake. It makes it human. Now, as we move forward in time, we arrive at an important shift. Japan experiences long periods of internal conflict, and then, after unification, a long peace. This matters for Bushido, because the clearest writings about a warrior code often appear when warriors are not constantly fighting. When war is daily life, the code is mostly in action, in training, in punishment, in custom. When peace arrives, the warrior class must explain itself. The Tokugawa era, also called the Edo period, stretches for more than 2.5 centuries. In this time, the samurai class still exists, still holds status, still carries swords, but many samurai are no longer charging into battle. They become administrators. They collect taxes. They enforce laws. They write documents. They argue about philosophy. In this new world, what is a warrior for? If your identity is built around war and war is not happening, you either change or you become a costume. Some samurai did fight in smaller conflicts. Many did not. But the social structure still placed them above farmers, artisans, and merchants. And here, the need for moral justification grows. If you are a class with privilege, you want to believe you deserve it. You want to believe your role benefits society. So you build an ideal. You talk about restraint. You talk about service. You talk about duty. You talk about being ready to die. Not because you will die tomorrow, but because the threat of death gives your life a sharp edge. This is where many famous Bushido themes become more explicit. One key idea that appears again and again is a focus on death. There is a saying often linked to a later text. The way of the warrior is found in death. The meaning is not a love of dying. It is a mental discipline. If you accept the possibility of death, you can act without hesitation. If you cling to life too tightly, fear will twist you. This idea is powerful. It is also easy to romanticize. In reality, warriors did not always rush into death. They negotiated, they retreated, they surrendered, they sometimes survived. The obsession with death can be an ideal, meant to push people toward courage, but it is not always a perfect mirror of behavior. Still, as a mental tool, it matters. Now, to understand the formation of Bushido as a concept, we should look at some written sources. There is no single ancient book titled Bushido that everyone used. Instead, there are many writings in many genres: house codes, moral essays, Buddhist teachings, Confucian discussions, war tales, and later manuals and reflections. Some texts are practical. They tell you how to manage a household. They tell you how to behave toward a lord. They tell you how to keep accounts, how to settle disputes, how to avoid disgrace. Other texts are spiritual. They connect discipline to Buddhist practice, to the idea of emptiness, to the idea of non-attachment. They suggest that if you do not cling, you can move with clarity. Confucian thought also plays a major role. Confucianism emphasizes hierarchy, duty, loyalty, and proper behavior within relationships. Ruler and subject, parent and child, older and younger, husband and wife, friend and friend. In the Edo period, Confucian ideas were embraced by many as a way to order society. So, when we hear about Bushido virtues like loyalty, respect, and self-control, we should remember that these were not created in a vacuum. They were part of a larger moral world. Let us slow down and look at a few themes that are commonly associated with Bushido and explore how they might have been lived. First, loyalty. Loyalty, in the warrior context, can mean staying faithful to a lord, even when it costs you. It can mean placing the lord's interests above your own. It can mean accepting punishment, accepting poverty, even accepting death. But loyalty also operates within a web of obligations. Lords had duties too. A lord who abused his vassals could lose them. A lord who failed to protect his people could face rebellion. In an ideal story, loyalty is pure and direct. In the real world, loyalty is negotiated, enforced, tested. There are famous tales about loyal retainers, and one of the most well-known involves 47 men who avenge their lord, then accept execution. The story is complex, and it was shaped by theatre and later retellings, but it reveals something important. Society admired a certain kind of loyalty and also feared disorder. The story becomes a way to talk about duty, justice, and control. Second, honor. Honor can be understood as reputation, as the public face of your worth. In a society where status matters deeply, honor is a form of currency. Lose it, and you lose opportunity. Lose it, and you can be cast out. Honor is also internal. A person can feel shame even when no one else knows. This inner shame can be stronger than any outside punishment. In Japan, the idea of shame as a social force is often discussed. Shame is not simply embarrassment. It is the fear of failing the expectations of the group. Bushido ideals often emphasize avoiding shame, keeping your conduct clean, being reliable. Third, self-control. Self-control is central to the image of the samurai. The calm face, the slow breath, the hand that does not shake. Training for self-control can be physical. Repetition, drills, posture, breath, balance. It can also be mental. Meditation, contemplation, reciting teachings. In some stories, the warrior is expected to remain composed even when insulted, even when threatened, even when hurt. But self-control can also become a mask. It can become a demand to hide emotion, to hide pain, to hide fear. That can be both powerful and damaging. Fourth, courage. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is action in the presence of fear. In battle, courage matters, but courage is also needed in peace. To speak truth to a superior, to admit error, to accept consequences. Many moral writings praise courage as the ability to do what is right, not merely what is bold. Fifth, compassion. Some people are surprised to see compassion listed among Bushido virtues. But in many teachings, the ideal warrior is not supposed to be cruel for sport. The ideal warrior is supposed to be a protector, a person who uses force when needed, but does not enjoy suffering. This ties into Buddhist and Confucian influences. A strong person should be gentle when possible, and yet history shows brutality. The same class that praised compassion could enforce harsh punishments. This contradiction is not unique to Japan. It is a common human contradiction. We can believe in kindness and still do harm. Now, we should also speak about ritual suicide, often called seppuku. Seppuku is frequently presented as a clean act of honor, but it was also a form of punishment and a tool of control. If a samurai was ordered to commit seppuku, he was given a chance to die in a way that preserved status for his family, rather than being publicly executed like a criminal. So seppuku can be seen as both privilege and terror. It is privilege because it preserves honor in death. It is terror because it is a forced death. In some cases, people chose seppuku voluntarily. In other cases, it was demanded. The very existence of such a practice shows how tightly honor and social order were linked, and it shows something else. The body becomes a stage for morality. The body is where the code is proven. Now, as we drift deeper, let us consider how Bushido, as a named concept, becomes more prominent. The word Bushido appears in various forms, but its modern fame is often connected to later writers, especially in the modern era. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Japan underwent massive changes. The samurai class was abolished. The country modernized rapidly. New institutions formed. The old order fell away. In this moment, there was a hunger for identity. A hunger to link the modern nation to a noble past. A hunger to describe what makes Japan unique, what makes it strong. Writers and thinkers shaped Bushido into a national story. One famous author, writing for a Western audience, presented Bushido as the soul of Japan. He described it as a moral code that formed the character of the people. This writing had impact. It helped spread the word Bushido globally. But we should be cautious. A writer can compress centuries into a clean narrative. A writer can select the most flattering parts. A writer can frame the past to serve the present. So when people today quote Bushido lists, we should ask, where did that list come from? Who wrote it? When? And for what purpose? This is not to dismiss the values. It is to see them clearly. Now let us do something quiet and slow. Let us step into a scene. Imagine an Edo period town at night. Paper lanterns glow softly. The streets are narrow, shops are closed. Somewhere, a guard walks his route. His sandals make a light sound against the ground. A samurai walks too, not in armor, just in the clothing of the time, with swords at his side. The swords are symbols now as much as weapons. He passes ordinary people, a merchant, a craftsman, a farmer who has come into town. The samurai is expected to behave with dignity. He is expected to avoid petty conflict. He is expected to represent order. In his mind, he carries an image of himself. He carries the gaze of others. This is a kind of pressure. It shapes behavior. In a world like this, a code can serve as a guide, but it can also serve as a leash. Now, consider the household. Many clans and families had house codes. These were rules for behavior, often written by leaders for their descendants and retainers. They could include guidance like, be frugal, avoid gambling, avoid drunkenness, respect elders, train daily, study letters, not only arms. This is important. The ideal samurai is not only a fighter. The ideal samurai is also educated. In the Edo period, literacy spreads among samurai, and many study classics, write poetry, practice calligraphy. This adds another layer to Bushido: refinement. The warrior should have taste. The warrior should be able to sit in a tea room and appreciate simplicity. This might seem far from battle, but it relates to self-control and presence. The tea ceremony, for example, can be seen as training in attention. The careful movements, the quiet respect, the acceptance of imperfection. Some warriors embraced Zen Buddhism, which emphasizes direct experience, discipline, and a kind of calm in the face of change. Zen training can include meditation, koans, strict routines. A warrior might find Zen appealing because it trains the mind to remain steady. But again, we should avoid simple myths. Not every samurai was a Zen master. Many were ordinary people doing a job. Now, as we move further into the night, let us take one virtue at a time and explore it in a more grounded way, with examples that could fit real life. Think about rectitude or justice, sometimes described as the ability to choose the right action. In a strict hierarchy, what is the right action? Sometimes the right action is to obey. Sometimes the right action is to speak up when an order is wrong. But speaking up can be dangerous. So the code can become a balance. Obey, but also maintain a moral spine. In many moral writings, the ideal retainer is honest with the Lord. He warns the Lord against foolish choices. He does not flatter. But in reality, flattery can be safer than honesty. So the ideal is high. It is like a mountain peak. People look up to it. Not everyone reaches it. Now think about courage again. Courage might mean facing death, but it might also mean enduring life. A lower-ranked samurai in peacetime might face poverty. Many did. They still had status, but their stipends could be small. Some took side jobs. Some taught. Some became wandering swordsmen. In such a case, courage might mean keeping dignity while struggling. It might mean resisting corruption. It might mean not stealing, even when hungry. The code in this sense is a survival tool for identity. Now think about respect. Respect is often presented as politeness, but it can be deeper, recognizing the place of others within the social order. In a rigid system, respect can mean knowing your role. It can also mean treating even lower status people with basic humanity. Some teachings emphasize that true strength does not need to bully. A strong person can be gentle. Now think about honesty. In some stories, a samurai's word is his bond. If he promises something, it must be done. But again, there is tension. Politics can demand deception, so honesty becomes an ideal, a standard. The gap between the standard and reality is part of the story. Now, as you listen, you might wonder, is Bushido real, or is it a later invention? The answer is both. Values existed, practices existed, a warrior culture existed. But the neat word, Bushido, as a single code, became more fixed in writing when people look back and tried to define what the samurai had been. It is like trying to define the rules of the ocean. The ocean is real. The ocean has patterns, but any list of rules will be a simplification. Now, let us drift into another scene. Imagine a young retainer, maybe 16 or 17. He is learning etiquette. He is learning how to bow. He is learning how to speak in the correct way. He is also learning how to use a sword, how to draw, how to cut, how to move. But more than that, he is learning how to endure. He is told that fear is natural, but panic is shameful. He is told that anger should be controlled, he is told that pleasure should not rule him. In this training, we can see Bushido as a program to shape human impulses. The code is a tool for building a certain kind of person. But who benefits from that person? The Lord benefits, the state benefits, the family benefits. The individual may also benefit because a code can give meaning. Yet the individual can also be trapped. Now, another theme often linked to Bushido is the idea of readiness. Always be ready. Be ready to act. Be ready to die. This readiness can create calm because it removes the shock. If you accept outcomes, you suffer less when they arrive. This is close to some Buddhist thought. But again, it can be used to make people obedient. If a person is ready to die for a cause, that person can be used. So Bushido can be both a path to personal discipline and a tool of social control. Now, we should also consider the role of stories and theatre in shaping the image of Bushido. Many people in Edo, Japan consumed stories about warriors, tales of bravery, loyalty, revenge. These stories taught values. They also entertained. They created archetypes. An archetype is a simplified figure. The loyal retainer, the honorable swordsman, the cruel tyrant, the wise old teacher. Archetypes help people understand a complex world, but archetypes can also harden into stereotypes. So, when we talk about Bushido today, part of what we are talking about is a cultural story. Now I want to slow down even further. Take a breath. Let your shoulders soften. Let the idea of a strict code become less sharp. Instead, imagine Bushido as a quiet room filled with scrolls, weapons, and memories. In one corner is the practical reality: men fighting, men dying, land being taken, families being destroyed. In another corner is the moral ideal: loyalty, courage, self-control. In another corner is the political use: the state telling people how to behave. And in another corner is the modern imagination: movies, novels, slogans, lists on the internet. All of these corners exist. Tonight, we are walking through the room. Now let us step into the question of the sword. The sword is a symbol in samurai culture, but in many earlier periods, archery and spear were more important on the battlefield. The idea of the sword as the soul of the samurai becomes stronger over time. In peace, the sword becomes a badge of status. The wearing of two swords is a visible marker. This visual marker shapes identity. If you carry a symbol, you are expected to live up to it. But symbols can also become hollow. A person can carry a sword and still be cowardly. A person can carry a sword and still be corrupt. So the code must be internal to matter. Now let us speak about training again. Training is repetition. It is doing the same movement again and again until the body learns it. This is not only about fighting, it is about discipline. Discipline can be learned in any practice: writing, tea, archery, meditation. In Japanese culture, there is a deep respect for mastery through repetition. This is part of why martial arts can feel spiritual. The action becomes a mirror. You see your impatience, you see your anger, you see your fear, and you learn to breathe through it. Bushido, in its best sense, can be seen as an attempt to build that kind of steady person. Now, as we keep moving, let us examine the idea of loyalty in a more complex way, through the concept of giri, duty. Giri can be understood as a social obligation, a debt you owe. In a web of relationships, you owe your parents, you owe your lord, you owe your clan. This debt can never fully be repaid. It is like a shadow that follows you. Bushido ideals often place giri at the center. You must fulfill duty even against personal desire. But personal desire exists. People fall in love. People want comfort. People want freedom. So the conflict between duty and desire becomes a theme in stories. A code becomes a way to choose, but choice can be painful. Now, let us speak of one more concept. Makoto, sincerity. Sincerity is not only truthfulness, it is alignment between word and action. A person who says one thing and does another is not sincere. A person who performs virtue for show is not sincere. In a society that values face, sincerity can be rare, so it becomes treasured. Now, we should address a common modern list of Bushido virtues, sometimes presented as 7 virtues. You may have seen lists like rectitude, courage, benevolence, respect, honesty, honor, loyalty. Such lists are modern constructions, drawing from various sources. They are not a single ancient checklist, but they can still be useful as a way to talk about themes. If you use the list as a map, not as a claim of one true ancient code, it can help. Now, consider how the image of the samurai was used in modern Japan. In the early 20th century, as Japan became an empire and fought wars, leaders promoted ideas of sacrifice and loyalty. The past was used to inspire obedience. Bushido language could be used to push soldiers to endure hardship and death. This is one of the reasons historians are careful with the term. When a moral story becomes a political tool, it can become dangerous. So, when we explore Bushido, we should not only admire the discipline, we should also notice how ideals can be used. Now let us return to the quiet path. You are walking again. The road is still. The night air is steady. And as you walk, the ideas begin to settle. Bushido is not one thing. It is a conversation across time. It is the way warriors saw themselves. It is the way society saw them. It is the way later people wanted to remember them. Now, I want to offer you a gentle journey through 6 long movements of thought, without labeling them as chapters, but letting them flow. We will begin with origins and the messy reality of warfare. Then we will move into the long peace and the shaping of ideals. Then we will examine death and discipline. Then we will explore loyalty and social control. Then we will look at the modern invention and global image. And finally, we will bring it all back to the present, asking what parts of this code can still be useful and what parts should be handled with care. Now, in the earliest periods of samurai history, the bonds between lord and retainer were often personal. A leader rewarded followers. A follower protected the leader. This bond could be sealed with oaths, gifts, marriage alliances. The code was not written on paper as much as it was written in consequences. If you failed, you could be punished. If you succeeded, you could gain land. The code was practical. In later periods, as governments formed and law became stronger, the code became more formal. And as the state became more centralized, the warrior class became more controlled. In the Edo period, the government enforced a rigid social order. The samurai were expected to serve as the backbone of authority, so their behavior mattered. They could not be wild bandits. They had to be disciplined. So moral teaching increased. This moral teaching shaped what we now call Bushido. One famous text often mentioned in popular discussion is the Hagakure. It was written in the early 18th century based on conversations with a former samurai. It was not widely published at the time. It became famous later. It contains strong statements about readiness to die and loyalty, but it represents one voice, one perspective shaped by its moment. Another important work is the Book of Five Rings, written by Miyamoto Musashi. Musashi was a swordsman known for duels. His book is more about strategy and mindset than about moral virtue. It emphasizes perception, timing, adaptability. It shows a different side, the warrior as a thinker. And there are many other writings, from clan codes to moral essays. So when someone asks, what is Bushido? The most honest answer is, it is a set of ideals drawn from a warrior culture, described differently by different people, and later shaped into a national myth. Now let us bring in the everyday. A samurai might wake early. He might practice. He might attend to official duties. He might study. He might manage finances. He might care for family. He might worry about status. He might fear shame. He might dream of heroic battle that never comes. In that daily life, Bushido is less like a grand poem and more like a set of pressures. Do not embarrass the family. Do not fail your lord. Do not act selfishly. Do not appear weak. And yet, the samurai is human. He can be jealous. He can be lazy. He can be cruel. He can be kind. So the code is always contested inside the heart. Now, consider the idea of reputation again. In the modern world, we also live with reputation. We also worry about how we are seen. We also feel shame when we fail. So Bushido themes can feel familiar. That is part of why the code still fascinates. But we should not collapse cultures into each other. We should respect the differences. Now, let us return to death. The emphasis on death can be understood as a way to cut through hesitation. If you decide in advance that you will do your duty even if you die, then when the moment comes, you do not debate. This can be heroic. It can also be tragic. Because sometimes the duty is wrong. Sometimes the Lord is corrupt. Sometimes the state demands cruelty. If you train people to obey without hesitation, you can get obedience for good and for evil. So, a modern listener might take the discipline, but also keep the moral question alive. Now we will drift into a quiet thought experiment. Imagine you are a retainer. Your lord gives an order. The order will harm innocent people. What does Bushido demand? Some might say obey. Some might say refuse. Some might say warn the Lord. Some might say accept death rather than do harm. Different texts and stories give different answers. This is important. It means Bushido is not a simple moral machine. It is a field of tension. Now, as we move forward, let us speak about the Meiji Restoration. In the 19th century, the Tokugawa government fell. Power returned to the emperor in a new modern form. Japan opened to the world. The samurai class was dismantled. Swords were banned in public for most. The old order was gone. In this time, many former samurai struggled. Their identity was removed. Some became soldiers in a modern army. Some became officials. Some became teachers. Some rebelled. The last samurai rebellions are part of the story. But then, as the samurai vanished as a class, their image grew. The samurai became a symbol of Japanese spirit. Bushido became a moral heritage. This is a common pattern. When something is gone, it can become pure in memory. Reality is messy. Memory is clean. So, Bushido, in the modern imagination, can be cleaner than the historical truth. Now, as we drift toward the present, we can see Bushido used in many ways. It can be used in business as a metaphor for discipline. It can be used in martial arts as a moral frame. It can be used in pop culture. It can be used in nationalism. So, the word carries many meanings. Tonight, our job is not to pick one meaning and declare it final. Our job is to lay the meanings down gently, like stones in a line, so you can walk along them. Now let us slow down again. If your eyes are heavy, let them be heavy. If your breath is deepening, let it deepen. The story will keep a steady pace. We will keep moving, but softly. Now, we will revisit each major theme and anchor it in a quiet, concrete image. Loyalty. Imagine a letter written on paper, folded carefully, a message from a lord, a command. The retainer reads it. He feels the weight of his family name. He feels the eyes of other retainers. He knows that to refuse is to stand alone, so he obeys. This is loyalty as social gravity. Honor. Imagine a public gathering, a ceremony. A mistake is made. A person is laughed at. The laughter spreads like fire. The person feels heat in the face. The person feels the stomach drop. This is honor as a fragile shell. Self-control. Imagine sitting in Caesar, knees bent, back straight. Your legs ache. You do not move. You breathe. You let the ache exist without panic. This is self-control as endurance. Courage. Imagine standing at the edge of a duel. You know the other person is skilled. You feel fear. You step forward anyway. This is courage as stepping into the unknown. Compassion. Imagine a defeated enemy. The enemy is helpless. You could kill. You choose restraint. This is compassion as power under control. Now, in many stories, these virtues are praised. But in the archives, we also find laws, punishments, politics. We find officials disciplining samurai. We find samurai disciplining commoners. We find inequality. So Bushido is also part of a system that produced beauty and cruelty. Now, I will guide you through a longer, calmer reflection on how such a code forms. A code forms when a group needs a shared identity. A code forms when behavior needs to be controlled. A code forms when the world is uncertain. If you do not know what tomorrow brings, a code can give you a stable self. It says, no matter what happens, this is who I am. This can be comforting. It can also be rigid. Now, consider how codes evolve. A code is not only written, it is performed, it is taught, it is enforced, it is praised in stories, it is punished when broken, it is internalized. Then, later, it is remembered. Then, later still, it is reinvented. Bushido is in all these stages, depending on the time. Now, because you asked for the Bushido script, we will keep the focus on the gentle documentary journey. We will not turn it into a myth sermon. We will keep the language plain. We will keep the pace slow. We will mark the boundary between what is supported by history and what is later legend. We will do that naturally, in voice. Now let us think about one more aspect, the relationship between violence and morality. A warrior code often tries to moralize violence. It tries to say, violence is acceptable if it serves a higher duty. It tries to frame killing as a service, not a crime. This is dangerous territory, because once violence is moralized, it can be expanded. So some teachings emphasize restraint. They emphasize that the warrior should not be eager to kill. They emphasize that the warrior should be calm. But calmness can also make violence efficient. So again, tension. Now let us approach the end of this long journey. Before we close, we will ask a quiet question. What can a modern listener take from Bushido without taking the harmful parts? You can take discipline. You can take self-control. You can take the idea that your word matters. You can take the idea that courage can be practiced. You can take the idea that strength can include compassion. But you can be careful with blind loyalty. You can be careful with shame-based control. You can be careful with glorifying death. You can be careful with using the past as a weapon. Now let the night road appear again. The path is quiet. You are nearing a place where the story can rest. The lantern light is dim. The air is still. And in your mind, the word Bushido is no longer a sharp slogan. It is a soft cluster of ideas, human and imperfect, shaped by time. If you remember nothing else, remember this. The code is not only what people said, it is also what people did. And it is also what later people wished had been true. And that is how history often is. Now take one more slow breath. Let your jaw loosen. Let your hands relax. Let your thoughts drift. We have walked through war and peace, through duty and story, through discipline and myth. And now we will let the archive close its book. But before we do, we can take a longer, slower loop through time. Not to rush, not to cram, but to let the details settle like dust in a beam of lantern light. Let us begin with an early turning point when warrior families rose into the center of power. In the late Heian period and into the Kamakura period, military rule became more formal. A warrior government formed, separate from the old court world. This mattered because it built an idea that fighters were not only hired muscle, they were rulers, they were administrators. They were the backbone of a new kind of authority. When a warrior becomes a ruler, he needs more than strength. He needs legitimacy. He needs rules. He needs a way to decide who is loyal, who is a threat, and what kind of behavior is acceptable. In this period, you can see an early shape of warrior ethics emerging from practice. Rewards for service, punishments for betrayal, expectations around oaths, and a sense of clan identity. Clan identity is important. The individual warrior matters, but the family line matters more. A person is not only a person is a carrier of a name, and the name stretches backward to ancestors and forward to children. This can make duty feel heavy. It also makes it feel natural. If you grow up hearing the same stories about your ancestors, you may feel that you are walking in their footsteps. You may feel that you cannot step off the path without betraying them. Now, as time moves forward, Japan enters periods of deep conflict. In the Sengoku era, often called the Warring States period, power fragments. Lords fight lords, alliances shift, armies march, castles rise. In this kind of world, a code is tested. It is easy to talk about virtue in peace. It is harder to hold to virtue when you are hungry, exhausted, and terrified. War creates its own ethics. Some are noble, some are brutal. You learn what works. You learn what keeps you alive. You learn how quickly mercy can become a liability. And yet, even in war, people do admire certain behaviors. Courage still earns respect. Loyalty still builds trust. Betrayal still carries a stink. But loyalty can be complicated when the political ground is moving. A retainer might swear loyalty to a lord, but if the lord is killed, what happens to that loyalty? A retainer might follow a lord into a doomed battle, but is that noble or foolish? A retainer might change sides to protect his family. Is that betrayal or responsibility? Different people will answer differently. So, in the Sengoku world, you often see a practical loyalty. Loyalty as long as the bond holds. Loyalty as long as the Lord protects and rewards. Loyalty as long as the path makes sense. This may sound cold, but it is realistic. Now, unification begins to end the chaos. Figures like Oda Nobunaga, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, and Tokugawa Ieyasu reshape the country. The wars that once seemed endless begin to settle. And then In the Tokugawa era, the long peace arrives. This long peace is one of the most important engines behind the Bushido image we inherit, because in peace, the warrior class has time to reflect. In peace, the warrior class has time to write. In peace, the warrior class has time to turn lived habits into words and ideals. The samurai still train, they still carry status. But many do not fight. So the question returns, what are we? One answer is service. The samurai serve the state. They keep order. They enforce law. They provide an example. Another answer is readiness. Even in peace, one must be ready. Ready for rebellion. Ready for invasion. Ready for disaster. Another answer is moral leadership. If the samurai are above others in rank, they should be above others in virtue. This is where the code becomes more moral, more didactic. You can imagine an older samurai speaking to a younger one by lamplight saying, "You may never fight a battle, but the battle is inside you. Your anger, your laziness, your vanity, your fear." In that moment, the sword is not only steel, the sword is a symbol of cutting through weakness. Now, let us look a little closer at the influence of Confucian thought, because it shaped how many Edo-era intellectuals framed duty. Confucian teaching emphasizes proper roles. It says that a stable society depends on each person fulfilling obligations. Rulers rule with virtue, subjects obey with loyalty, parents care for children, children respect parents. In this view, loyalty is not only personal, it is structural. And honor is not only reputation, it is the visible proof that you are playing your role correctly. This helps explain why shame can feel so severe. Shame is not only personal failure, shame is a crack in the structure. If you fail publicly, you suggest that the social order is not as stable as it claims. So the pressure to avoid shame is also pressure to preserve the system. Now, as we drift deeper, we can revisit Seppuku again, with a calmer, more detailed lens. Many people imagine Seppuku as a dramatic, free choice. The warrior chooses death rather than dishonor. Sometimes that did happen, but often, Seppuku was a formal sentence. It allowed an elite person to die in a way that maintained a certain dignity, and it allowed the authorities to punish without turning the person into a public criminal. In other words, it was an execution that preserved hierarchy. The ritual aspect made it feel meaningful. The witnesses made it social. The rules made it controllable. If you are listening and feeling uneasy, that is normal. Because beneath the beauty of the ritual is the reality of power. Now, let us consider a famous story that helped shape popular ideas of loyalty. The tale of the 47 Ronin. A Ronin is a masterless samurai. The story, in broad outline, tells of retainers whose lord is forced to die after an incident, and who then wait, plan, and avenge him, knowing they will be punished. The tale became extremely popular. It was told in plays and stories. It became a cultural symbol. But it is also a perfect example of how Bushido is shaped by narrative. The story teaches loyalty. It also teaches patience. It also teaches that revenge can be framed as duty. And it teaches something else. That after you do your duty, you accept the law. The retainers avenge, and then they submit to punishment. This is important because it keeps order. It says, you may act for honor, but you must still respect authority. So, even in a story of defiance, the system wins. Now, if we look at real samurai life, we also find rules about appearance and conduct. There were expectations about clothing, about hair, about speech. There were rules about carrying swords, about not drawing them lightly. There were rules about how to enter a room, how to sit, how to bow. These details may seem small, but they build a kind of moral atmosphere. If you practice control in small things, you may be more capable of control in big things. That is the theory. Now let us speak about education again, because this is another part of the Bushido story that gets simplified. Many samurai were literate. Many studied classics. Some wrote poetry. Some painted. Some practiced calligraphy. This was not only for beauty, it was a kind of self-shaping. If you can sit still and write carefully, you can also sit still and wait. If you can observe a flower and describe it with restraint, you can also observe your own mind. This is why some people describe the ideal samurai as both warrior and gentleman. But again, not every samurai lived the ideal. Some were drunk, some were cruel, some were lazy, some were brilliant. Now, another part of Bushido that often gets overlooked is the role of money. Many samurai in peacetime lived on stipends. Some were poor, some were in debt. Merchants, who were lower in the official status order, could become wealthy. This created tension. A samurai might look down on a merchant, but still borrow money from him. This can produce shame, and it can produce moral talk about frugality and simplicity. So, when a code praises frugality, it may be responding to real economic pressure. Now, let us turn to another quieter topic: the women in samurai households. Samurai culture was male-centered in public, but women played important roles in households, in alliances, in management, and in maintaining the family line. Some women were trained in martial skills, especially for defense of the home. Women also carried expectations of honor and duty. They too could face shame. They too could face harsh consequences. So, when we imagine Bushido as only a male warrior code, we can miss how the household itself was part of the moral system. The family was the unit. The code supported the unit. Now, as the modern era arrives, we can slow down and watch how the image is transformed. When the samurai class disappears, the image becomes portable. It can be used in schools. It can be used in the army. It can be used in civic morality. And then, later, it can be used in international storytelling. A clean image travels well. A messy reality does not. So, in many modern presentations, Bushido becomes a set of inspirational virtues. That can be positive, but it can also erase history. It can erase the suffering of common people. It can erase class violence. It can erase political manipulation. So if we want to respect the past, we keep both sides visible. Now let us make the final part of this journey more personal and calm. You, listening now, do not need to adopt a warrior code. You do not need to perform honor. You do not need to carry anyone's expectations like armor. But you might find one or two ideas useful, the way you might pick up a smooth stone and keep it in your pocket for a day. You might keep the idea of steady discipline, not harsh discipline, not self-hate, but steady discipline. You might keep the idea of doing small things well. You might keep the idea of aligning word and action. You might keep the idea of courage as a practice. And you might keep the idea that true strength can include kindness. If you carry those ideas, you do not need the myth. You do not need the slogans. You do not need to pretend the past was perfect. You can take what is good and let the rest remain in the archive. Now, take a slow breath. Feel the bed beneath you, the chair beneath you, the softness that holds you. The night road is quiet. The lantern light is low. And the word Bushido, after this long walk, is no longer a hard sound. It is a soft echo, shaped by people, by time, by story. Before we end, there is one more layer worth touching, because it shapes how Bushido feels in the modern mind. That layer is the difference between the warrior on a battlefield and the warrior in a city. In the Edo period, many samurai acted as officials and police. They investigated, they arrested, they enforced rules. Their authority was not only in the sword, but in the law behind the sword. This changes the meaning of courage. On a battlefield, courage can look like charging forward. In a city, courage can look like restraint. It can look like refusing to escalate. It can look like taking an insult without turning it into blood. There were strict expectations about drawing a sword. A sword drawn lightly could create chaos, and chaos was the enemy of the Tokugawa state. So, the ideal warrior in peace is a controlled warrior. This is one reason some Edo-era moral talk emphasizes calm, politeness, and careful behavior. It is not only spiritual, it is political. Now consider how duels and personal fights fit into the story. Popular culture often imagines the samurai as constantly dueling in the moonlight. But the reality is more constrained. In many cases, violence in the streets was punished. Samurai were expected to avoid reckless conflict. They were expected to represent the dignity of their class. Yet humans are humans. People fought. People argued. People took offense. So there is always a gap between the ideal and the practice. And that gap is where the code lives. A code is most visible when it is tested. Now, there is also the myth of the perfectly loyal retainer, always ready to die. This myth can be beautiful, but it can also hide a quieter truth. Many people simply wanted to live. They wanted to eat. They wanted to raise children. They wanted to see another spring. So, the ideal of death can be understood as a kind of extreme North Star. It points a direction. It says, do not be ruled by fear. But most people, even in warrior societies, do not want to die. They want to survive with dignity. This is why the best way to hear the famous lines about death is not as a literal command, but as a mental practice. Decide what you value, so you are not paralyzed when the moment comes. Now, one more myth. The idea that Bushido is a single ancient code that every samurai followed. If you fall asleep with only one correction in your mind, let it be this. Bushido was not uniform. Different domains had different rules. Different families had different house codes. Different teachers emphasized different virtues. Different eras valued different skills. Even the meaning of loyalty could shift depending on political needs. So rather than one code, think of a family of codes. Related, overlapping, sometimes disagreeing. Now why do we still use the singular word? Because the singular word is convenient. It is easier to say Bushido than to say a shifting set of warrior ideals shaped by Buddhism, Confucian ethics, military practice, and modern nationalism. But convenience can create illusion. So when you hear Bushido, you can hear it as a label for a long conversation. Now let us bring in the modern world for one last quiet comparison. Today, many people seek structure. They seek a sense of purpose. They seek a code. They may not call it a code. They might call it values. They might call it discipline. They might call it principles. Bushido becomes appealing because it seems to offer clarity. Be loyal. Be brave. Be controlled. Be honorable. But clarity can be dangerous if it removes nuance. So, A gentle modern approach is to take the spirit of practice and leave the harsh edges behind. Practice courage, but do not worship death. Practice loyalty, but do not surrender your conscience. Practice honor, but do not let shame destroy you. Practice self-control, but do not become numb. And practice compassion, because without compassion, strength becomes a cold machine. Now we can return to the quiet road one last time. The lantern light narrows. The air is cool. The path is simple. And before we reach the end, we can take one last slow look at a question that sits under everything. Who gets to define a code? When a warrior writes about virtue, he is defining himself. When a teacher writes a manual, he is defining a student. When a government promotes an ideal, it is defining a citizen. When a novelist or filmmaker tells a samurai story, they are defining a myth. Bushido, in that sense, is not only a set of values, it is also a claim. It is a claim that says, this is what a good person looks like. And because it is a claim, it can be argued with. In some eras, the claim leans towards strict obedience. In other eras, it leans toward inner discipline. In some tellings, the claim leans toward compassion and protection. In other tellings, it leans towards sacrifice and severity. So when you hear the word, you can ask quietly, who is speaking? A retired warrior remembering the past, a scholar shaping morality, a modern writer selling an image, a leader trying to harden the heart of a nation. The same word can carry all those voices. Now, there is also the question of what is left out. Codes often highlight virtues that serve the powerful. They talk about loyalty to the top. They talk less about care flowing downward. Yet many real moral teachings do say that rulers must be just, that leaders must be restrained, that power must be used responsibly. When those parts are forgotten, Bushido can become one-sided. So if we want a fuller picture, we remember that duty should not only be demanded, it should also be earned. A lord who treats people as disposable should not be surprised when loyalty turns brittle. A leader who uses honor as a whip should not be surprised when people lie to survive. This is not modern judgment forced onto the past. It is also a lesson found inside many older teachings. Power must be paired with virtue or it rots. Now, if your mind is drifting, let it drift. You do not need to hold every detail. Let the main shape remain. Bushido as a long, changing idea, built from real practices, written into ideals, and later polished into myth. And in that shape, you can still see something human. The desire to live with meaning, to act with courage, to control the self, and to belong to something larger. If we wanted to boil the entire journey down to a few calm reminders, they might sound like this. Do your work carefully, even when no one is watching. Keep your promises, because trust is fragile. Train your body and your attention, because panic grows in an untrained mind. Treat power as a responsibility, not a toy. And when you fail, as every human fails, return to the path without drama. Correct, apologize if needed, and continue. Those are not uniquely samurai lessons. They are simply human lessons, shaped into a particular Japanese historical costume. So you do not need to imagine a sword to practice them. You can practice them in a kitchen, in an office, in a quiet room at night. And if the word Bushido ever returns to you later, let it return in a softened way, not as a demand, not as a hard mask, not as a loud slogan. Let it return as a reminder of deliberate living, of choosing actions on purpose, of not being dragged around by impulse and fear. That is the gentlest version of the code. The harsher versions belong to their own times, to war, to hierarchy, to state power, to myth-making. We can study those versions, understand them, and then set them back on the shelf. Because you are here to rest. You are here to sleep. So let the final images be simple. A dim corridor of a wooden house, a paper screen moving slightly with night air, a distant temple bell, imagined, fading into silence. A person setting down a burden, finally, after a long day. The code, the history, the arguments, the myths, all of it can wait. For now there is only breath, slow and steady. For now there is only quiet. And if any last thought tries to rise, you can let it pass like a cloud crossing a dark sky. No need to solve anything tonight. No need to prove anything tonight. No need to be strong tonight. Just let the body sink and let the mind loosen. In the distance, the night continues without asking anything of you. Hours will pass. Dreams will come and go. And tomorrow can carry the weight that tonight no longer needs to hold. A final breath in and out. The room stays safe. The world stays far. Everything can wait until morning, quietly. And the archive, patient and silent, waits for us to stop speaking. And now, we truly let the archive close its book. This was a quiet archive story, where the story ends, sleep begins. you.